You are a certified person. Am I audible to you guys?
Now,
Yes, sir.
Okay. So guys, in our last session, we understand outbound integration using REST message, inbound integration using table API. See here, this ServiceNow instance is actually receiving the data. For receiving, as we are receiving the data, we call it as inbound integration. For inbound integration, here we have used table API. As this instance is actually sending the request, that is actually called outbound integration. For outbound integration, we used REST message. For outbound integration, it is always REST message. Okay, so we are done with the table API. So for inbound integration, this time I am going to use table import set API. So I am not going to use table API. Why am I not going to use table API? Why am I going to use import set API? So we have to understand the difference. Why didn't I use? So why am I not using table API? Why am I using import set API? So then when do you use table API? Okay, so we'll just understand. So here, right, when you use table API, here what exactly are you doing? Whenever you send a request from this ServiceNow instance, it is receiving. So it is receiving, it is directly creating a record on incident table. When you are receiving the data, it should not create record directly on the target table, right? First, it should be placed in the staging table. From the staging table, the data has to go to the target table. This is what we have learned in the transform apps concept. Hope you guys remember. So when you use table API, you are directly creating records on target table. You are directly creating records on incident table in this case. So whenever you are actually receiving the data, it should not actually directly create records on target table. First, it has to store into the staging table. From the staging table, we have to validate the data. After successful validations, only then we will actually allow them to store the data in the target table. Somebody has asked, where do we do the validations is what the question. So now I will tell you. Okay. So table API is actually direct access. Directly you are creating a record on target table. So here it is not best practice to create directly records on target table. If you directly create records on target table, there will not be any validations. Whatever the data that is coming, right? If the data is coming or coming, whatever the data that is coming is valid or not, we won't be able to check it when we are using table API. That is why it is not recommended to use table API for CRUD operations, create, update, read, delete. So then why do we use table API? So if this ServiceNow instance incident table data access, you want to give it to this particular instance, table data access, then you will actually use table API. So in this instance, incident table has data, right? Not only incident, any table data access. If you want to give it to external system, then you will give table API. Did you understand? So if you want to create a record on a target table, you should not directly create a record on target table. First, it has to be placed into the staging table. From the staging table, it has to go to the target table. So when external system want to access incident table data, then you will give table API. Did you guys understand why do we use table API? Saurav?
Yes.
Raviraj, you are trying to ask something?
Yeah. I was asking like it is only to have an access from the external.
So, what I'm trying to tell you is, here, if you take a look at incident table, incident.list, this incident table data access, you want to give it to external system, then you will provide table API. So if you want to create a record in the external system, so if you want to create a record in this incident table, then you will not provide table API. Table API is only used to grant access to see the data. Okay. Table API is used to grant this table data access to external systems. So we will not provide table API to create the records, to update the records, to delete the record, because it will directly create records on target tables. It is not best practice. So then what we will do, we will actually go for import set API. What happens in the import set API? So in the import set API, so if I just open Excel sheet, another Excel sheet. Okay, so this is actually instance one, dev 88924. This is actually another instance. That is actually this one. Okay. So if you use table API, what will happen? Whenever you whenever you create a record in this instance, directly it will create a record in the in this dev 136756. So if you use table API, right? So import set API, right? What will happen when you use import set API? What will happen is that first, whenever you create a record here in this instance, first the details will be stored in the staging table. Let me just, what is this? First, the details will be stored in the staging table. Okay. From the staging table, the details will go to the target table. So consider this is actually staging table. Okay. So whenever you create a record, right? What will happen? The records will first go to the staging table. From the staging table, we will run the transform map. After running the transform map, the details will go to the target table. So while running the transform map, we will check whether the data is valid data or not. Whatever the data that we are receiving, that is valid or not. So if it is valid, we will create records on target table. If it is not valid, we will stop the data processing here itself. Did you guys get what I mean? Usually, you cannot directly import the data in target tables in the ServiceNow system. While you are importing the data, first the data should go to the staging table. From the staging table, the transform map should run. So in the transform map, we will actually do the validations, whether whatever the data that is coming from external system is valid or not. Using transform map, we will actually validate that. If the validations are successful, then only we will allow them to create a record on target table. So if the validations are not successful, we will stop the data processing here itself. The records will not be created in the target table. Okay. So if it is staging, if it is in table API, whenever you create record here, without any validations, directly it will create record on target table. Are you guys able to understand the difference, the table API and import set API difference? Hmm? So when do we use table API? To grant target table data access, then only you will provide table API. To create the record, update the record, delete the records, we will not give table API. Okay. So here I am going to use import set API here. Using import set API, whenever you create a record here, it will create a record on the staging table. From the staging table, transform map will run. The details will be stored in the target table. So now we are going to understand how to create the import set API. Okay. So to create the import set API, here, where do we create import set API? Here in this table, right? This is the receiver, right? This will be receiving the data, right? So here what I do, I am going to create a staging table first. Staging table first. Okay. How do I create inbound? So under system web services, we have actually inbound. Under inbound, you can just click on create new. Okay. So here you are going to create a staging table. Create incident. This is the staging table name. This is the staging table name. So what is the target table name? Incident table. This is the staging table. This is the target table. So here you have selected create transform map. Transform map will be automatically created. So here I am going to create few fields on this staging table. I am going to create a few fields on the staging table. So what is the fields? Color. Okay. And second field I am going to create short description. Okay. I have created these fields. Let me just first save this one. So we cannot save this one directly. You can create this one. So we are creating a staging table and we are creating a transform map between the staging table and target table. See here, create transform map. I'm just clicking on create here. Please create transform map. Okay. So transform map concept we all have learned, right? I did the other day told you. So transform maps will be used in the integrations as well. So you can use auto map matching fields. Auto map matching fields purpose also you are able to understand, right? So there is one field that did not actually match contact type. So we'll map it using mapping assist. So contact type. So here it is actually channel field, I believe. So I have actually mapped using mapping assist. Okay. So here using transform scripts, we will do the validation. So first we will actually understand one by one. I have created a staging table, that is actually create incident staging table. So I have created a transform map between this staging table and target table, and I have done the field mapping. So I have to make coalesce field. I have to make coalesce field. What is that coalesce field here? Which field we have to make coalesce here? Hmm? So we have to do the field mapping between sysids. Here in the target table, it is actually sysid. Okay. Let me just get back. In the staging table, I am going to create one more field. In the staging table, I am going to create one more field. Okay, let me just open that staging field here. I am going to create one more field on the staging table. String type incident ID. Okay, I have created a new field on the staging table. So I am going to do the field mapping here with that field. So with which field I am going to do the field mapping? sysid. Okay. So here I'm going to use source script here. Why am I using source script here? Hmm? Why am I using source script here? Whatever the sysid that is coming into the system, right? If that sysid is there in the ServiceNow system, it has to update the record. If the sysid is there in the system means it has to update the record. If the sysid is not there in the system means it has to create the record. Did you guys get what I mean? Whatever the sysid that we are getting, right? If that sysid is there in the system, it has to update. If the sysid is not there, it has to create record. So here, right? Here, what I am doing is I have a field called incident ID, right? If source dot u underscore incident id equal to empty. So here what am I doing is I'm actually generating a new sysid. Okay. Else return. Okay. I will tell you. I will tell you clearly understand. I know that there is a confusion here. I'll make you guys more understand. Let me just submit this one. I know that there is a lot of confusion here. I have created a staging table called create incident. That is clear, right? So in that staging table, I have created 6 fields: caller, short description, contact type, state, incident ID. Okay, 6 fields I created. So one is actually contact type, state, description, short description, and caller. Another field also we have created called incident ID. Okay, for that I have used script. If whatever the incident ID that we are getting from the external system here, right? Whatever the incident ID that we are getting external system, right? If that incident ID is equal to empty, then generate a new sysid. Whatever the incident ID that we are getting is empty, here in the script, right? I'll show you. From the external system, if you are actually getting incident ID value as empty means here this one, then generate a new system ID. Else, whatever the sysid that is coming in the incident ID field, use that sysid. So here what will happen? If there is no sysid, if there is a sysid generated, that will not match with any other system, any other record in the system, right? Then it will create a record. So whatever the value that is actually coming here from the external system, if that is there in the ServiceNow system, whatever the sysid that is coming from here, right? If the sysid is there in the ServiceNow system target table, it will update the record, right? So now here first I have created a staging table, and then I have created a transform map between staging table and target table, and I have done the field mapping. So here I am actually making this coalesce field as sysid is actually as coalesce field true. Okay, I will tell you, no worries. You don't have to worry about it. So here what I do, I'll go to the REST API Explorer. I'll go to the REST API Explorer. So here API name you will select here as import set API. Here API name you will select as import set API. So here in place of table, you can see import here. Earlier there was table here. Now it is actually import here. So what is the table name? So you want to create record, right? So create incident. So what will happen? First you will create a record on create incident table. From that transform map will run. Through the transform map, it will create a record on the incident table. Earlier when we were using table API, right, we are directly creating record on incident table. Here what we are doing? We are first creating a record on the create incident table, and then transform map will run. It will actually place the details into the target table. Okay. So here I am passing state as new. New means one, not this state. There are two states. State as one here. Contact type. So we can keep email. Short description. Description. So here, if you can notice one thing here, incident ID I am here passing as empty. If it is empty, it will generate the SysID. Whatever the SysID that is generated, that will not present in the external ServiceNow system. Then Coalesce will actually see that the value is not there in the existing system. Then we have to create the record. Now, what are we doing here? We are creating records on staging table. We are creating record on staging table with the incident ID as empty. Okay, if it is empty, what we are doing? We are generating a new SysID. So if it is a new SysID, it will not match with the incident table SysIDs, right? Then it will create a record. So now what I am going to do? I am going to hit enter here.
On the incident ID, like script field, you have declared this, right?
Yes, yes. Here in the script, I have defined here u incident ID. So 201 created. So here, this is the incident record that is created in the ServiceNow system. This is the incident record that is created in the ServiceNow target table. Okay. So we'll show you one by one. So after you pass this payload, right? After you created this record from the STP Explorer, right? First, it would have created record on staging table. What is the staging table? U underscore create underscore incident. So a record is created here or not? State as one, caller ID is this one, email is import set API. These are the values. So let us take input incident ID. So incident ID is actually empty here, right? We have passed empty. So then it has actually first created record on staging table and then transform map has run. So now we will actually check. So now we will check the incident table whether the record is created or not. So in the incident table, a record is created, right? Import set API. So we did not directly create record on target table. We just created record on staging table. From there, transform map has run, and then it has actually created a record on target table. Now what I do? I will actually take this API here, import set API here. Okay. Notepad. Staging table API. This is actually staging table API. So here this is actually staging table. This is not a target table. This endpoint we are taking. Then what are all the other changes we have to do? We have to adjust user related roles. We have integration user role, right? So for that integration user, where is this integration user? This is the one, right? To this integrate, I am going to use the same integration user for import set API as well. So here what I am doing is, earlier I have actually provided REST related roles here, right? Now I am going to provide transform map related role here. Import transformer. Okay. And also you can grant create u underscore create incident table role as well. So the table access is not there. Okay, so we have actually granted import to transformer role. So now what I do is, I will take this URL, I'll take this endpoint, and then I am going to create a REST message in my instance. Why do we use REST message? To send the data to external systems, I will use. So from my system, I will create a record on the staging table, and then that will run the transform map. It will create a record. Okay. So now what I do, I will actually create a REST message from my instance here. Okay. Okay. This URL I will take. Here I will provide the same credentials I am going to use. I am creating a new REST message here. So here I am actually going to create a new HTTP method to create the record. Same HTTP methods. Create, post, endpoint. Okay. In the HTTP request, here you have to provide this content. Okay. Let me just tweak this one. Frame this one. Let me. I have to frame this one. Okay. So I'm going to take this out. So here with this one value, email value, import setup, we have to make this dynamic. We have to make this dynamic. Okay. So how do I make this dynamic? Dollar, flower brackets, u state. Dollar, u c type. USD. Okay. So I am just creating a HTTP method here. I can click on variable substitutions here, auto generate variables. So variable substitutions will be automatically generated using these keys. So now what I can do here, I can actually pass the test values, some random content. So here I'm actually passing this as incident ID as empty. See, incident ID as empty I'm passing here. UID means incident ID. I'm passing empty here. So USD means test one I'm passing here. State one I am actually passing here. Okay. Now I'm just clicking on test. I can verify whether my system is able to reach external system or not. So it is giving 401. 401 means password error. So invalid username password combo. Guys, please go on mute. So here 401 error. 401 means invalid username and password. So why is it considering invalid username and password here? Still 401 error it is giving. I have to go to the user account. I have to change the password here. Yeah. So this time it is able to reach this system. It would have created a record on the system here. Test one. A record is created here. So here we have created a REST message. In the REST message, we have created a HTTP method called create. Okay. So inside that create HTTP method, we are actually passing the content. Here we have made this content as dynamic. So what I am going to do, I am going to trigger this HTTP REST message and HTTP method from the business rule. So in my incident table, Okay. If this correlation ID is empty, that means there is no record in the external system. If this correlation ID empty means there is no record in the external system. This is not empty means there is a record in the external system. We can actually identify something like this one. If this is empty, we will pass this correlation ID value. If this is empty, incident ID will become empty, right? Then it will create a record. If this is not empty, it will pass the sysID and it will system can identify in the external system that this is the record that we have to update using coalesce. So now I am going to create a business rule here. Okay. After insert. So this is the way we will actually trigger the REST message, right? Now here what I do, I'll take the REST message name. So HTTP method name is same. So I think caller is actually uCaller, right? uCaller. Okay. Short description is actually USD. USD. U description. This is actually UC type, right? U. Okay. So here we have to pass two parameters as well, two other parameters. What are those? What are those? Can you guys spell out? State, UID. So here state, current state value you are passing here in the U state. So here you are actually passing the correlation ID here. In the incident ID, you are actually passing correlation ID, U underscore correlation ID. If the correlation ID empty, incident ID will be set as empty. If it is empty, it will create a record. If the correlation ID is not empty, it will pass the sysID. If that record sysID is present in the external system, that record will be updated. UID, uColor, U description, USD, UC type, U state. Fine. Okay. Here we will actually get response in some different format. So here we will have to change this logic here. I will show you how to adjust that. Okay, now what I am going to do is I am going to create an incident record now. So the problem is that it will actually trigger two business rules, right? We have to deactivate one. Let us deactivate this one. So we have one we have this business rule, this business rule will actually trigger the import set API. So inside that business rule, what we have, we are triggering the REST message. Inside the REST message, we are triggering the HTTP method. Inside that, you are actually passing the caller ID, short description, contact type, state, correlation ID. So for new record, correlation ID is empty. So here, here in the business rule, we are actually passing correlation ID as empty. If it is empty, it will actually trigger the sysid, right? If that sysid is not there in the external system, that will create the record, right? So let us say once you create the record here, right, there will be sysid. So if the sysid is not empty, that sysid is present in the external system or not, that obviously will be present in the external system, that will be updated. Okay. So now what I am doing here, first let me just create a record so that I will get the response. It will not update the record because we have to change the response format. So it is giving 201. Are we getting the status code here? Oh my God, we are getting status code here. Dot 201 means it has created record here. You guys can see here. A record would have been created here. See here, the record is created here, which is fine. So now so I'm just creating the record. So when I create the record, it will actually give us the response. So this is the response that we have got. See guys, did you guys notice one thing? When we used table API, we have got a lot of response. But when you are using import set API, we have got very limited response. So what is that limited response that you are getting? Number, and you are actually getting sysid. Apart from that, you are not getting much details. So that is also one of the difference. When you use table API, right, you will get a lot of response. But when you use import set API, you will get limited response, number and sysid. Okay. Now let me just copy this one. Online JSON formatter. Okay. So here we have actually array here. How many arrays are there? Only one array is there. So we have to take the index, result of 0. Okay. So this is actually an object. Inside that object, how many arrays are there? We have actually an array here. Okay. So inside that array, you have to take display value and you have to take sysid. So how you will retrieve, I will show you now. Result of 0 dot display number. I'll show you now here. Result of 0. So display value, right, for number. Okay. So result of 0 sysid. Okay. Now let me just create a record here again. So first, when I create a record here, this correlation ID will be sent as empty. So if it is empty, what other system can understand? If it is empty here, that means there is no record in the external system. If it is not empty, that means there is a record in the external system. If it is empty, we will pass incident ID as empty. If we pass incident ID as empty, it will generate a new SysID. Okay, now I am actually entering all these values. Okay. Here it will create a record and those values will be updated here. See? Now we understand that there is a record in the external system using this ID. So what we do? So if you update this record, what will happen? So system will understand that this is actually the ID that we have to identify whether the record is there in the external system or not. So here, right, when it comes to the import set API, you don't have to separately write it for create. You don't have to separately write it for create. You don't have to separately write it for update. You don't have to separately write it for delete. Only one API. So here, if you go to the business rule, select update as well here. Okay. Now I am going to change the short description here as test 456. Let me just open this particular record here. Here you have test 5, right? This is the record that is created, right? I'm updating 5456. I'm just saving this one. So once I save this one, right? If I open this record here, this incident record will be automatically updated. Okay, this incident record will be automatically updated. So I have created, right? Let me just refresh this one. This incident record is automatically updated here or not? Did we write any separate HTTP method for update? How system is able to understand we have to update this record? Using the transform map. Using the transform map, in the transform map, we have used coalesce, right? That coalesce, if the SysID is coming as empty, it will generate a new SysID. If it is new SysID, that will not match with external systems, existing records. Then it will create a record. So if you are actually passing this SysID here already, if this SysID is there in the existing records, it will be updated, right? So whenever you update here, that is actually triggering this business rule on update as well. That is triggering this REST message. Inside the REST message, we are actually passing the correlation ID. So in the transform map, we will understand that whatever the correlation ID that we are receiving that is there in the existing system, we have to update that particular record. So which field short description value we change, right? So let me just try to change here as description to Uday Gadiparthi. Okay. As soon as I changed the description here, immediately the description will be changed here. Is it changed or not? So for import set API, you don't have to write separate HTTP method for update. You don't have to write a separate HTTP method for delete. Okay. Clear, right? So here what I have done first here, I have created a staging table. After that, I have created a transform map between incident table and staging table. While mapping the fields, I have actually done the field mapping between source table and target table. I have kept incident ID and sysid as queries. So here this logic is very important. This logic is very important. So whatever the incident ID that we are actually getting, if that is empty, generate new sysid. If it is not empty, that means you have actually incident sysid that is coming. If that is there, record will be updated. Okay. So here this incident ID value, we are actually passing it from business rule. So that is actually UID. Here we are actually passing that incident ID from correlation ID. So when you are creating the record, correlation ID will be empty. Then it will create a record. So second time when you update that record, so SysID, you will have SysID, right? This SysID, right? So system will understand that there is already a SysID. Then we have to update the record. Okay. So let us try to delete this record. Okay. I think for delete we have to, the current object will not work. When you are deleting, the current object will not work. Okay. So then we will actually go to the REST API Explorer here. Let us try to delete the record here. So there is no delete for everything. Post is only the option for import set API. There is no option for deleting record here. There is no option for deleting record here. So then what we will do, we'll just delete this one. And we will see whether the record is deleted in the external system or not. So when I deleted that, it did not delete here. So why did not it delete? Maybe we have to select a delete function. Maybe we have to select a delete function here. Not query before delete. Okay. For creating, updating, deleting, for everything you have to use same. So the record will be created there. So this is the record that is created. Okay. Now I am going to update this record. So the same state should be updated here in the channel as chat here. It is updated here, which is fine. Now I am actually deleting this record. When I delete this record, the record should be deleted in the external system as well. Now I deleted this record. Okay. So now what should happen? This record also should be deleted, right? This record is still exist. So why it is not deleting the record? We have to understand. So which I will actually explain it in tomorrow session. Okay. So how did I use import set API? What is the purpose I did use import set API? You guys are able to understand or not? So table API is actually allowing directly users to create record on target tables. But here in the import set API, we are actually creating records on staging tables. From the staging table, we are actually running the transform map. Through the transform map, we are creating records on target table. So here we are actually using import set API, not table API. So we are creating a record on import set table. Okay. So and then the transform map coalesce is very important here. That coalesce logic itself is very important. So this one, this logic is important. This total concept work on this logic. Okay. So we will actually understand delete part in tomorrow session. Okay. So hope you understand, guys.